Greetings, everyone. This is Pamela Lorenzo, your host of the Leaders Web podcast. Today for episode number 246. Wow, closing in on 250, the big 250. Wow. I have another wonderful guest that I met through a mastermind we took 2 weeks ago with my buddy Jay. And this gentleman, his name is Shawn Bandick, fellow Canadian from the West Coast, from British Columbia. You know, just listening to his story during the mastermind, I said, wow, I need to connect with him to hear his story. And once we started talking, I said, well, I need you to come on a podcast to share your story. So a little bit about him. From Vancouver, BC, British Columbia. Now he's been living and based in a beautiful place in Mexico called Vale de Guadelupe. It's a wine valley in Mexico, just south of San Diego in California, in Baja California. And they've traveled a lot, extensively, lived in Thailand, Mexico, and around the world. And what they've been doing is that they are a relationship coach, helping single professionals over 40 to find their long-term relationship and give them a blueprint to make that happen, to find the true love. So yeah, he's been a very active business person himself. He built a very successful real estate business in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico before, training them on the cultural aspect of doing business in Mexico. He was one of the pioneers in that. So he has a very interesting, inspiring, empowering story, and that's why he's here today. And we're going to talk about all of that. So without any further ado, Shawn, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, thanks for the introduction. It was actually Playa del Carmen where we were most of our time. We did live in
Okay.
Puerto Vallarta for a
Okay.
year. But we lived 15 years in Playa del Carmen, south of Cancun.
Wow, we can do an entire episode, and not even episode, an entire season just on. I'm sure you have some funny, interesting, scary, or even juicy stories from there.
There
Absolutely.
was lots of fun there. When we first went there, it was this little tiny town.
Yeah.
There was one stoplight on the highway going past the town, and that was it. That if there was ever some traffic, a police officer would go out and and tell the traffic which way to go. But there was just one stoplight, little tiny town, and when we left, it had gone through being the fastest growing town on the planet for two
Wow.
years straight. It's book
Wow.
a record. Hmm.
Beautiful. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But first and foremost, what I'd like to know, on my
Sure.
podcast, I'd like to have a look under the hood, so to speak, to see what's in your heart and to have a heart-to-heart conversation. Sure, we're going to talk about your business, your achievement, and all that. But what this podcast is about is to get to know you, Shawn, to see who's Shawn as a person, as a human being. So tell us, for someone who doesn't know you, tell us, who's Shawn as a person, as a man, as a human being? We'll
Okay.
talk about the business after, just as a man, as
Okay.
a human being.
Well, you hit it when you said we live abroad and we live in Valle de Guadalupe, which is a wine valley, and rolling hills and vineyards. And we built a very eco-friendly home, built it right into the side of the earth in a hillside, and we live a really tranquilo lifestyle, like very calm. And that's the best for me. It's when if I had to go to a city every day and be in a city and work in the hustle and bustle and the go, go, go of the city, it wouldn't match with me and my energy. And here I'm totally connected to nature and to the land, and I have the pace that I want in my life, and I can at the same time be connected and work with people all over the world. But for me as a man, this is where it's at, is just to have a quiet lifestyle where I'm really connected to nature and the earth.
Beautiful. I'm with you on that. I'm the same. Now, tell us, what makes you happy as a person?
Everything I just said makes me happy. And going traveling too. We travel as much as we can. And now that we relocated from the Caribbean coast of Mexico to Valle de Guadalupe, puts us more on the Pacific coast. So we have family in British Columbia in the Okanagan Valley. So actually, what's really a fun, happy thing for us to do is drive up the coast and just zigzag between all the little towns and finally find ourselves up in the Okanagan Valley in British Columbia and spend, a portion of the summer at least a month, maybe 6 weeks there with our kids and family, and then meander our way back. That kind of trip for us is perfect because we're not rushed. We're enjoying it along the way. We meet beautiful people, and you can see even in that drive, you see a change in the culture of the people as you go across. So it's really cool.
Absolutely love that. Absolutely. Now, what makes you smile?
My wife makes me smile. That's all good, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, all of those, like, we are surrounded with so many great people. We have this saying. I don't know how we came to this, but my wife and I have this saying that runs through our head all the time, and it's that we always meet the nicest people wherever we go.
You know why?
And I'll tell you,
Because you're nice
sorry,
yourself. You attract what you project. From my
thank you.
experience.
But at the end of the day, here's a big smile moment. At the end of the day, when you sit back and look at each other and say, "Holy cow, what a day." We met that guy, he was so helpful, and that lady, she was so helpful, and that person at that couple that we met at the coffee shop, they were so cool. And you go through your day and you realize that, wow, it happens over and over and over again. It's a big smile moment right there when you realize that, yeah, if that's what you're thinking about, that's what happens.
Because we're antennas, we project. What you project, you attract.
Sure, sure.
Beautiful. Now let's take the happiness factor a couple of notches higher. Tell us, Shawn, what makes your heart sing? What makes your soul set on fire?
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Well, I love to spend time with our kids and our grandbabies. So, of course,
Mhm.
that is a big part of it. And spending time, just watch them and see their little kids. And they're, from one is like 18 months and the oldest is 5, and the middle one's like 3. And so spending time with them and seeing them grow and have fun, and seeing kids be uh, successful in their lives and living a nice life, that's all great. And anything I can do that's creative. I love a
Mhm.
creative outlet where um, I love to build things. I built everything from apartment buildings to furniture.
Wow.
So I have that in my background before I got more into different kind of business. But I've done all of that sort of stuff in architectural millwork design. So that still holds a real fondness for me to start a project and finish a project and look at it and say, there, I did that, and make something cool for people.
Beautiful. Love that. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, what makes you sad and angry?
Oh my gosh. Really? You want to go there?
Remember,
Your
it's
podcast will probably get pulled. Um, let's just say the lack of freedom of speech
yes,
and the cancel society that we live in,
big
and
time.
the lack of ability to have a conversation. Because here's the thing. Here's what a conversation is to me, Payman. I can have a point of view about something, and you are my friend, and you can have a different point of view about it. And guess what? It used to be friends could have a different point of view and still be friends. They didn't hate each other, they didn't exclude each other, they didn't cancel each other. That didn't happen. They didn't slander each other. They just said, "Hey, dude, I never looked at it that way before.
There you go.
Thank you for sharing your opinion with me and broadening my scope and my opinion. And I appreciate that so much." That's what a conversation used to be. It didn't used to be unfriend you and slander you and go scratch your car.
Cancel you and all that. Yes, and dox you and all that. Yes, I hear you.
Sorry, dude.
I'm with you. No, no,
You asked.
no, no. Hey, I'm totally with you on that. Absolutely. Now, what scares you?
What scares me? Huh. What scares me? Hmm. The lack of leadership in the higher levels in the world today.
Oh, yes.
Lack of leadership. There's ways to lead people through in a way that we're not creating victims, and we're not creating fear to control people.
And I would add to that the lack of heart in our leadership. It's not, instead of dividing, bringing people together. And that's one of the things that you've experienced as well because you've traveled a lot. When you travel, you see people from all over the world, you realize that we're all the same. We're all the
Yes,
same
exactly.
dreams and aspirations, whether you're black, blue, white, green, purple, still a human being with red blood.
Exactly. And that kind of love goes a long way. And I read an article. It was written by a segment of the police force, and they were talking about how hard they try to keep the people together and connect and make connections to keep the communities and the people in the communities together and connecting, and how other leaders choose to break that all down, right? And it's sad when the police force is reeling from that too.
Yeah. Like the police being defunded or being, trashed and all that. We need the police. It will be chaos without them. Yeah. I hear you.
Of course.
Now, what would you say is your number one personal superpower?
Ha! Superpower.
Personal.
Well, I'm pretty sure. I'm just looking at my roof. It's pretty high. I'm pretty sure I couldn't jump over the tall building or anything like that. But mind you, as I said, my house is built into the ground. So if I went to the back of the house, I probably could jump onto the roof. In which case, I'm jumping onto the roof superpower. I don't know,
Well,
dude. What would I say that is? I think often when I talk to people, their comment to me is they just love to feel the calm.
mm,
And because I don't buy into or listen to, and don't get me wrong, the news, right? You got news or newspaper and all that we used to get delivered to our door. And then my kids were little, and the newspaper would be sitting there with the pictures of bodies on the front
mm,
page. And I'm like, I can't bring this into my house. And
exactly.
so I started to exclude newspaper and news from my life. Not that, and here's the thing that I learned about that is that you will still learn all about all the news that's going on, but you just won't have to listen to it every 30 seconds over and over again throughout your day on every device you've got. And so it gives you a cleansing and allows you to live a cleaner life. And if I were to go backwards from the statement I get from people when I'm talking to them, they say, I love to feel your calm and just be there with you for a while and feel that calm. I would relate it that I'm not in the same trenches that a lot of people are. That's why we live a quiet lifestyle in the hills, in the vineyards. That's why we exclude news and media from coming into our life. We get it,
Beautiful.
we still get it once a day or twice a day, but not every 30 seconds because everybody wants to tell you something worse than the last guy told you. Well, what good is that for your mind?
There you go. And this is exactly why I haven't watched news in 5 years. I don't even want to know. What a wise man once told me, if something is important, you will hear about it. You will know about it. So you don't have to be glued to the TV for hours and hours. And I was having a wonderful conversation with another man on Monday. He gave me the most beautiful news website. It's called nicenews.com. They only bring to you positive, happy news. There's no rape, murder, crime, whatever. It's all whatever. It's all about beautiful things, beautiful gestures. So nicenews.com. That's my only
Nice.
news I watch. Yeah.
I'm gonna look at that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful. Now, you love traveling, right?
Yeah.
All right. Let me take you now down a different type of traveling, down memory line. When we're kids growing up, especially as a young boy,
Oh, was that you? Yeah. Sorry.
parents, teachers, relatives, friends ask us, so Shawn, what do you want to become when you grow up? What was your answer to that question as a young boy?
Huh.
Was it hockey player,
Nope.
lumberjack?
What do you want to be when you grow up? I don't remember what it was.
Mm.
I know I always built things and I always created things and I always was inventing something. And yeah, well, I don't know if I would have said it, but I knew that I'm going to build and design things. I made a crossbow once on the weekend and I carved it out of wood that I went on the bush and cut the wood and the whole bit. So, and all the other kids wondered where I was. And at the end of the weekend, I came out with my crossbow and I thought, this is cool.
How old were you back then?
Oh, I don't know. I was probably 12 or 13 or something like
Wow,
that.
amazing. Beautiful. Now, what was your relationship growing up with school? Did you love school or did you hate school?
Oh, okay. School was it was okay. It's not that I hated school. I actually enjoyed the learning. I was a good student, had good marks and all that sort of stuff. I didn't enjoy some of the, sometimes in school you get cliquey groups and you get even gangs that that will be mean to other people, and I didn't enjoy that, so I tended to sometimes be in the middle of it. But there you go.
Beautiful. Yeah. What was your favorite subject in school?
Well, I did like all the shop classes because I liked to create things, so I liked all that.
Was there any class you could not stand at all? Sorry, not a class, subject.
Subject I couldn't stand. Huh. Well, the least favorite would have been like something like social studies or history
Mm,
class or something. It didn't really click for me.
okay. What was your very first job? And do you remember how much you got paid for your first job?
Oh my gosh, first job. Hmm. I know I cut grass for neighbors. I picked mushrooms at a mushroom farm. I helped landscape a couple places. I have no idea what I got paid.
No
I
worries.
just,
Yeah. Let's move forward now. Let's take a look at your path from the moment you left school to now. How would you describe it? Would you say it was pretty much straightforward once you get into one lane, smooth sailing, you were set for life, or was it more like turns and twists like a roller coaster?
well, I think if it wasn't turns and twists, we would have made it that way because we always went the opposite way to where everybody else was going. So we always did our own thing. We always did something different. So
It's more
yeah,
fun that way, right?
I think so. But then I'm not maybe not the same.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's a saying that says, change your story, change your life. So when you're Sean, you're at some of your, darkest, lowest point in your life. How did you change your story internally to change your story, to change your reality externally?
Okay. How do you change your story internally? Well, your internal story, you you have to become aware of what
Mhm.
is the movie playing in your head.
Exactly.
So what are your thoughts going on in your head? Because whatever those thoughts are going on in your head is is ultimately going to be what you attract into your life. So that's the challenge is that I see a lot of people, they they're so focused on all the things they hate. They talk about it, they get emotional about it, they write about it, they scream about it in their social media. And if you're spending so much time thinking and giving emotion and attention to all the things you hate, well, guess what? You're gonna
Mhm.
get more of the you hate, right? We have an exercise that we do with people to get them past that for sure. We learned later.
Beautiful. You mentioned that you've been traveling a lot and you've been living in Mexico for a few years. What made you make the move initially from leaving the beautiful, gorgeous British Columbia to go to Mexico?
Well, yeah, that's a great question because people do ask us that. They say, "Oh my gosh, you lived in the Okanagan Valley. That's so beautiful. Why would you ever leave?"
The best place in
Well,
Canada, yeah.
right? Oh, but the world is a big sandbox out there. You know
Exactly.
yourself. You found the sandbox in Kuala Lumpur.
Yeah,
right? So it's a big sandbox, and I'm looking at my watch thinking, time's up, time to go find a new sandbox.
exactly.
And at the time, we had done 7 major trips in 12 months, in the past 12 months. And I mean, trips like to Rome and to Thailand and to all over the place. We did 7 of them. And my wife said to me when we were about 5 or 6 weeks in Thailand in the mountains, well, actually, at that time, we were in the southern islands of Thailand. And she says, she comes to me, I'm sitting by the pool, and she says, something to the effect of, why do we do this? And, I'm a guy, I'm sitting by the pool. I'm like, what did I do? What did I do?
Leave me
And she
alone.
says,
Let me
no,
enjoy.
no,
Yeah.
not that. She says, why do we go traveling like we've been doing? We travel for as long as we can, and then we zip back, and then we're right back, head down, work, 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 work like crazy people. She says, why don't we just go
Amen.
and go travel? She says, take a look around. We're literally on an island in southern Thailand. She says, take a look around. Do you notice the people at the dive shop are foreigners and they own that business? And you notice there are foreigners over there that own that little hotel, et cetera, et cetera. And she says, why don't we do that? And there was the
Wow.
spawning of the idea. It was not the first time it came around in our life because we've been together a long time, but this time was the right timing. And so I told her, I said, well, let's figure it out. Let's figure out if we can make that happen. And it took 2 years to put our affairs in order. We had a business and we had house and stuff like that in Canada. And we took care of everything. And then we decided to pack our 2 kids, 11 years old and 8 years old, into our Toyota 4Runner, and we're going to point it south from British Columbia. And we figured if we did that and we traversed the whole Mexico, we'd eventually get down into Belize. And so that's what we did.
Beautiful. How difficult was the transition from leaving behind your life in British Columbia? And it's one thing to go there on vacation or short trip for say 2, 3, 4 months, but another thing to completely resettle in another place and build a new life from scratch. So how difficult was that transition for you guys? So when you first came
Well,
to when you first came to Mexico, did you speak any Spanish, or that's something that you learned after moving, for example?
um, we did not, well, I think we took a couple of Spanish classes before we left, but so we had an idea. But it was only the stage where there's a stage as you're learning a language where you hear somebody speaking the language, you can't even pick out the individual words, you just hear a whole bunch of noises. And that's where we were at. We were not understanding all the individual words yet or anything like that. So we learned that along the way. We hired tutors, we went to schools, we did what we needed to do to learn that. Um, and one of the things that I found that lots of people did leave for a little while, and they said when they got there, they got to Mexico or wherever they were going, and they would say, "Oh, I'm going to stay here forever." And then you'd ask them a little bit about their background and what they've done, and they never sold their house. Their friend is looking after their house or whatever it is. And for us, we did all those things. So there was no strings tying us back and pulling us back to Canada. We were already finished our ties, did an accounting summary for our accountant, did it the day we crossed the border. As of that day, August 28th, 2001, they crossed the border. They're no longer in Canada. So we
Wow.
did all of those things so that we could continue going forward without anything pulling us backwards, that we have to go back and take care of. Because we found that the people that left something undone, in spite of the words they spoke, that they're here forever, they left something undone, and they were going to have to go back. And 80% of the time when they went back, that was that. They went back and they stayed back. They didn't just go back to take care of whatever that was. They stayed, they got back into the old life again.
And why is that?
I guess it's just easier, right? You leave something undone, you go back, you got the excuse to go back, right? You don't have to stand up and just say, "Hey, I made a choice." Some people don't want to, they feel they have to justify their choice. Of course you don't. You can make any choice you want to, and I can make any choice I want to, and we don't have to justify it. But people do that. It's a psychological thing. And so they're their excuse then becomes, oh, I got to go back and fix this in my house because my renter left or whatever it is. And then they never get back into their dream and they let their dream go. And for better or worse.
Yeah, I can see that as well because I've met a lot of people in my travels as well. They say, "Oh, I'm just gonna go back for a few weeks, take care of things, and come back," but then you never hear back from them. And I guess it's a lot easier for them, just like you said, to plug back in into the old lifestyle, even though they've seen a different way of living that is much can be much more enjoyable, much more, happier, because in Canada, at least in Toronto, half the year you're freezing, you know?
Right. Oh my gosh. That was a big thing for me.
Yeah. You guys, at least on the West Coast, you guys are lucky because you don't get as severe winters as we do in Toronto. But, that was one of the major reasons that I'm so looking forward. And I'm so glad that this year I didn't have to face any snowstorm or do any shoveling. Shoveling is one of
Right.
my pet peeves because on our street, a small street, I spent an hour shoveling. The next morning, the truck that's supposed to clean the road puts it back on the driveway.
Yeah, of course they do.
What is the point of that? I always, argue with these guys. So come on, why are you doing this? I spent 2 hours yesterday trying to clean that, and now you're putting it back. Come on, man, that's not
Man,
cool.
not cool. Not cool. Yeah, I don't know. We went back for Christmas and I prefer not to, but when the
Yeah,
grandbabies are back there and everything else, we go back at Christmas and we wake up the next morning and temperatures have plummeted and it's minus 26 degrees and I'm
wow.
like, yeah, this is too cold and so it's shocking, right? Shocking.
Oh, I hear you. I hear you. I'll take the 30 degrees plus the daily thunderstorms that last for an hour in Kuala Lumpur over the cold in Canada any single day.
Right. I actually like that too. I like the humidity. I like
All
the
right.
heat. I like that humidity mixed with the heat because it goes right through you and you feel, oh, this feels so nice.
I don't know if you feel the same, but usually when I come in Canada, I tend to lose a big part of my drive. I'm not as driven. I feel almost like lethargic. I feel like tired, lazy most of the
Mm,
time. No
mm,
drive. I don't barely want to go out. But when I'm out in the world, like for example, Kuala Lumpur. For example, in Canada, one thing I enjoy doing here during the afternoons, I enjoy taking a nice nap. When I'm Kuala Lumpur, I never take a nap. I'd rather go by the pool behind me and just chill there.
yeah, sure.
Or to go for a walk, or meet my friends, or do whatever I want, chill in a nice lounge and just work from lounges. I love going to 5-star hotels, lounges, bring my laptop and work. But in here, sometimes I even find myself falling asleep on my desk, on my chair.
Mm.
Do you feel the same way sometimes between Canada and Mexico?
Well, the only time I get lethargic in Canada, because I love to go out and do things while I'm in Canada
Yeah.
because I don't see it that often. So I love to get out and do things. But is if it's cold winter and you're staying in because it's too cold to go outside, now you're
Yeah.
cooped up in a house and it's not fresh air. I mean, our lifestyle here, we spend most of our time, well, all the house is always open. So the
Yeah.
breeze is always blowing, it's always fresh air, but lots of our time is spent outside. And so if I get trapped inside in Canada, I find that difficult. That's where I would get lethargic, like you're talking about.
And I'll spend most of my time just munching, 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 eating, and getting fat as a result of that. Whereas over there, sure, I eat, but I'm always active, walking, working out, doing stuff.
Yeah,
Feel more
exactly.
alive there. I guess the sun really affects your mood and everything.
I think so. And it's new and it's exciting, right? It's not same old, same old. It's like, oh, what do I find around this corner? Or look at that
Exactly.
little restaurant. I never tried that little restaurant before. And what is that food? I don't even know what that food is, but let's go try it. Right?
One of the things I enjoy doing in those big cities, I go on the subway and I just get off at random station and get lost, just explore.
Mhm. We have a rule about that is that when we go to a different city, we will walk or like you
Yeah.
say, take a train or do whatever we want to do, but we always carry the business card for the hotel or hostel or wherever you
Yes,
have
of
to be
course.
staying,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Always carry that card. And then at the end of the day, when you've done your walking and you're tired out and you're totally done, you just put your hand up, get a taxi to
Exactly.
come, and give him the card, and away he goes. It worked
Yes.
until we did that in Bangkok,
What
and then
happened?
it didn't work anymore. It was like, okay, so we found our way. We literally arrived one day. The next day, we wanted to go to the palace in the center of the city.
Yeah.
So we went down there, we wandered around, we went everywhere all around. And we found a lunch, which they had grasshoppers and all kinds of stuff you could choose from there. It was really interesting, right?
You
They
try
gave
them?
sizzle them. I didn't bother at the time. They had ants and inch long.
Yeah.
It was amazing. But that wasn't in the restaurant. That was the street food. The restaurant was actually really good. Great pad thai and different stuff. But anyway, at the end of the day, we decide, okay, time to get a taxi. Taxi comes over. We show them the business card. And we realize, well, I guess that can happen in a city of, I think at the time it was 13 or 14 million people. He's got no idea what that is. And now he's on the phone trying to figure it out. And he's asking me to give him directions. And all I know is, dude, we came in from that side of the city over there. And pretty soon we're driving out on some highway out of the city on an elevated highway. And I'm thinking, this has got to be close. And I got him off the highway. And then, there's little motorcycle gangs on every street corner there that and when I say gang, I mean in a good way. They're
Yeah.
all the red ones are here and the blue ones are there, and they service the local community and take them by motorcycle taxi out to the bus station or wherever they need to go to get the transit. And so he stops and talks to them, and they all start pointing him in the right direction. And eventually we found our way home. But I realized that, oh, so that doesn't always work.
Here's a tip. Learn about one or two major sightseeing, hotel, or whatever near your area. So if the person isn't okay, just tell them, oh, Sheraton or whatever, the German embassy, something that pretty much everybody knows. That's what I learned the same
Right.
too. Yeah.
That's a good idea because that's true. We were staying with friends that were teaching at an international school of Bangkok. So probably they could have looked that up. But anyway,
Yeah.
we found our way and it was an adventure, and who cares?
Yeah. So you've lived in a few countries, from what I understand, Thailand and Mexico. What is the number one challenge that you faced in each one, and how did you solve it or
Well,
overcome?
let me correct you a little bit because we didn't
Yeah.
live in Thailand. I mean, of course we
Okay.
were alive.
Travel. Yeah.
We traveled through Thailand. And the choice became while we were in Thailand when we started looking for places to relocate outside of Canada was we wanted something with a different culture, something with a warmer climate and sunshine, palm trees, beaches. We wanted those. That's pretty basic stuff, right? Um, so when Thailand checked a lot of the boxes, except we knew if we went to Thailand at that time, this is back in 2001, our friends and family aren't traveling to Thailand. It's not like anybody's ever going to see us or we're ever going to see anybody. But when we later thought of Mexico, well, we got friends and family already traveling to Mexico. So if we were in a cool spot in Mexico, we'd probably still see them, which it did work out that way.
And that was back then. There was no Skype, no WhatsApps. There was the old school, like buying phone cards. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. We'd
Yeah.
buy that phone card. And what was it? It was about $30 and you'd get, I don't know, I think 3 or 5 minutes of phone time or something like that.
That
You'd go out and
expensive? Wow.
you'd put it
Uh,
in there. Well, maybe it was 20 minutes. I don't know.
yeah.
But you'd put it in the phone booth with your phone card and you'd phone your parents and say, yep, we're all alive, kids are alive, everybody's alive, we're all good. You start with that because whenever it finished, right? So you just get that all on the out that we're still all alive, we're still trapped.
You remember back then there was probably the first business that any traveler would look for whenever they go to a new location was the internet cafe. So you can check your email,
Right,
do your calls, you know.
right,
That
right.
business
That's
was
right.
booming, but now it's no longer needed because everybody has apps on their phone and it's all easy to communicate. Yeah.
So much easier now. And
Oh
us
yeah.
with the family and grandparents at home, it was it was a different time then. It
Oh
was
yeah.
more of a disconnect. And
Yeah.
now you can stay and still feel relatively connected, just as we are now.
Hmm. Do you in some
Yeah.
ways miss the old days pre-internet, pre-cell phone, where people were much more connected, human to human? The human factor was much more relevant as opposed to now. Sure, we're all connected worldwide, but we don't even know our neighbor. I remember growing up in the south of France, when I went to the bakery or whatever, they knew me by first name. They were saying, "How's your mother? How's your father?" You don't have that kind of human touch nowadays, especially in Toronto. But even back then, we first moved to Canada back in '95. People still had this human touch, but nowadays I don't see that anyone anymore. Do you tend to miss that in a way, or
Well, I don't miss it because it's still in our lifestyle here.
that's beautiful here in
In
Mexico?
in
Yes,
here.
yes. Hmm.
In all the ranches and the people around us, we have friends who are Russian, we have Swedish friends, we have German friends, we have lots of different friends. So it's a very international group of people here, and we do stay connected more so um, than I hear from people. I have a friend, for instance, we invite a friend over when we had our house in Playa del Carmen, and we invite him over and we're having a barbecue and we're sitting by our pool and we're enjoying the garden. And I noticed him just looking around the garden. It's in the evening and he's got something going on in his head. And I said, Joe, what's the deal? He says, this never happens. I'm like, what are you talking about? Never happens. Every night we sit out like it. He says, no, 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 Shawn. He says, this never happens where I'm from in Chicago. And he was at the time living there as well, but he says he was still recreating the life he had in Chicago, recreating it there. So he never got off the treadmill. That's another story. But he says, think about it, Shawn. Here's what happens in Chicago. He says, you drive home from work, and as you approach your house, you press the button up there that opens your garage door. You drive into your garage, and your garage door closes. And then you go into your house and you go out into your backyard with your 6-foot high fence. So not your neighbors, not anybody can see you. And there you are. And then when you're ready to go, you go back into your car, up the door and out of the cave, and away you go. And he says, so we never sat with a neighbor. We didn't even know our neighbors. We never sat and had a barbecue with our neighbors like we're doing right here, right now.
Wow,
And I thought, that kind of disconnect, we're human beings. Human beings are meant to be
human
together
creatures.
and
Yes,
have connection, right? And so if any other forces or habits tear that apart, then you become more and more and more fragmented as a society.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you. Absolutely. Let's move on. Let's talk about your business. So you mentioned that you're a relationship coach, helping professionals, busy professionals over the age of 40 to find true love, and you give them a blueprint. Tell us more about that. What is the genesis of this business?
What is the genesis? How did it start? Is that
Yeah,
what you mean?
yeah.
How did we start with this? Oh, that's interesting.
Why this business and not any other business, for example?
Well, we were in lots of other businesses,
Hmm.
and it became more apparent that we should spend some time in this business to help more people that were coming to us. Actually, what happened was not only we had all kinds of businesses in the past that we developed ourselves, but we were always taking courses and training and becoming and learning about getting certified for coaching and stuff like that. And we used to come to Toronto in the freezing cold winter to work with Bob Proctor and get certified there too. So what happened was in our own businesses, we coached the people that worked for us and they became super successful. And so that was a beautiful thing. And we loved to do that. Um, And then we started coaching other people in different kinds of businesses and help them scale their businesses and do and be more successful. And it revolved a lot around mindset coaching. When I say we, I mean myself and my wife, who is 10 times better than I am at any of this. You should have a conversation with her one day and
Sure.
get some there. But what happened was we noticed at our age of about 50 at the time, not 50 anymore, but 50 at the time, that lots of people said, or lots of people we saw were breaking up. Their relationships were failing. They were coming apart. And in that happening, suddenly you have somebody who's been together for 20 years and they have a way of being together. And you take care of this and I'll take care of that. And so they have the way that they function together. And all of a sudden they're not together. And it's a crushing thing. There's a death of a dream that happens. It's a death of a dream. And people are hit by it. And it's a mourning period that has to go through. But so we noticed that there was people around us going through that, and they were struggling for a long time trying to figure out how do they get their feet back on the ground. And even some of them were ready. They had gotten through however much time they needed to mourn the death of that relationship. And now they were trying to figure out, how do I get back into a real relationship and a better one so I don't make the same mistakes I made before? And some people would ask us, and especially if we're already coaching them in something else, they would circle back to us and say, hey, I wondered if you would coach me in this relationship part of things. And so my wife, Suzanne, started doing more of that. And we started working together in that. And then pretty soon, and we always heard from people in our family or people that were close enough to know us and know our relationship. They would say, I want a relationship like yours. I want to find that kind of love in my life. And so then when we started seeing people breaking up and being single and not knowing what to do or how to create a better relationship the next time around, um, that's when we started putting together a program for that. And we started focusing on that.
How do you keep a relationship alive? You know, and the passion for that long? What's the secret?
There's a few secrets.
Yeah.
Well, some of which we've talked about already is one, get all that news and that negative crap out of your life.
Yes.
Start there and get on the same page about that and have real conversations. Like sit down and have a real conversation. A friend said to us the other day, she says, she spent a few days with us and she was visiting here and she says, every afternoon, you guys stop for a coffee together every afternoon? And I'm like, yeah, we do. We sit down wherever we are every afternoon. We have a coffee together and have a conversation. She's like, really? Wow. And she couldn't fathom such a thing with her
Wow.
husband. They would not doing that. And so it's that open communication, it's that understanding of what your spouse needs in a relationship, what makes them feel loved. Because, you know, it took me years to learn this stuff that I wasn't good at it. I was poor at a lot of this for a long time. And um, like saying sorry, I'm sorry. It's important to my wife to hear me say I'm sorry. And to me, it didn't, it wasn't that important. Or maybe I was too stubborn, right? You don't want to say you're sorry because then you're the one that's wrong and all that sort of stuff goes on there and your ego gets in the way. And if you can get your ego, right, there can't be three people in this relationship. Can't have the ego in there in between the two of you. You got to get that out and just be really real with each other and open and have that communication. And I mean, when we first got married, we had a couple of rules that we laid down right away. And one of them was that nobody, no person, no work, no nothing would ever come between us. And
Beautiful.
so if we were in a social setting and I said something and Suzanne maybe didn't quite agree with me, still in the social setting, she would still stand with me in there. And later, she wouldn't jump on me in front of a bunch of people and start saying, no, that's not right, and blah, blah, blah. And no, we'd stand together, we'd have the conversation. Later, we might have a conversation that goes something like, you know what? When we were there and you said that, I don't quite agree with that. Can you help me understand your point of view on that to see if we can get to some
Beautiful.
common ground?
That's
And
powerful.
and right there, you're going to, again, let's expand our understanding of each other and have a better, bigger perspective of how we can be together, right?
Oh, that's very
The
powerful.
part the part I hate the most, I'll tell you this, is these Hallmark movies. It's not that I hate the Hallmark movie because it's a good feel-good little love story thing. Uh, Repetitive over and over again, but it's a love story. Is the part in every movie where they're falling in love and they're so happy and something happens. She sees a text come in from another woman on his phone, so that's it. She assumes that their relationship is over, and she walks away for 3 years, and they hope someday later they'll find each other again, which is a total crock because it's real life isn't that way. And if you're watching those movies and you think real life and real relationships are that way, you're doomed.
Yeah.
You can't conduct yourself in that way. So that's a really bad example. And it's nothing more than just fun entertainment, very light. That's all. You have to be able to have a conversation about that. Hey, I noticed that girl's been texting you 3 times. Could you tell me who she is? Like, what's that? Oh, that's my assistant from work, or that's so and so selling advertising. Get it out
Yeah,
and finish it.
exactly.
So,
Makes so much sense. Yeah, absolutely. Common sense, really. That's what it is.
right,
Yeah.
right, common.
A common sense approach to life, to relationships, to everything. Beautiful. Tell us more about your program, the structure of your program.
Oh, um, the program it's an 8-week structure. We go through like I think it's almost 30 modules and sub-modules where we're actually doing action items. The whole idea is payment. There's a thought process that got everybody where they are today in their life. And their life is a reflection of that thought process, as your relationship would be also a reflection of that thought process. So we got to start there, is how can we change the thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
right? How can we make it something different? And people, they don't want to do that. What they want to do is they want to go to the dating site and they want to swipe through people and look at people. Well, guess what? Even if you found Mr. Right, but you hadn't corrected this side of the equation, nothing's going to happen and it's going to repeat itself. Think about
Yeah.
this, Payman. How many people do you know that when they talk to you about a relationship, they say something like, oh, this keeps happening to me over and over again. Or why do I always keep getting the same guys or the same kind of girls or whatever it is? And all the good ones are taken. You get all of that stuff. And that happens because you're still carrying around the baggage and the belief systems and the mindset that got you where you are last time. So Bob Proctor used to say this. He used to say, you can't solve today's problem with the same thinking that got you there.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's powerful. Yes, indeed. Wow.
So the first thing in the program is let's get immersed in a circle of people that are going to support you and positively elevate you and lift you up and cheer for your successes. Let's
That's
start
powerful.
right there. Let's get some of the negative crap out of your life. And let's explore why you believe what you believe and if it's really the truth. You know what truth is, Payment?
Tell me.
Truth is the same for everyone. So,
Is-
for instance, if
Yes.
I step off my roof, I'm going to go down. And so are you, right? That's gravity. That's truth. The truth is gravity's going to pull you down. But other people might have a truth and they say all the good guys are gone or all the good girls are gone. And yet their coworker over there just found somebody. And these people over here are having a great time. And look at that. I'm in this restaurant by myself again, and everybody in here is having a great time and they're couples together. So is it really true? So
See,
we
this,
gotta we gotta look. Is it the truth? Is it really the truth? Because you're living by it. You decided it. It was a thought that you thought often enough that you started to believe it. And once you started to believe it, you're going to live it. But it
see,
was only a thought you thought often enough to start to believe it.
see, this is one thing that we keep hearing more and more these days is, oh, I have my truth, you have your truth. No, there's only one truth. And that's what people sometimes, and they just hang on to that. So that's my truth. That's not your truth. But that's not my truth. That's your truth. Yeah.
It's the truth I choose to believe, then, I
Yes.
suppose,
The
is what
story I
that
tell
was.
myself. Yeah.
I choose to
Exactly.
believe that. And whether it supports you, if it supports you and you're winning,
Yeah.
great, go win it, whatever it is you want.
Sure.
And but if your truth is not supporting you, let's explore and see, is it really a truth?
If it's holding you back, it's time to change it. Yes. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Ah, beautiful. Now, share with us an example of some of the most remarkable transformation you've seen from one of your clients so far.
Huh. Yeah, let me think about that. We had one fellow that came to us. He was actually a previous business client, come to think of it. And at the time, well, okay, we won't go into his business side of things.
Mm.
He made a huge turnaround in his business side of things. But what happened was, it was a couple of years later, he came back and he asked Suzanne if she would take him through some coaching for relationship side of things. And he had a very specific idea. He lived in the United States. He thought that his perfect match would be someone with a little bit of an exotic background. He thought that they would be in was it Colombia? For some reason, he had this thing in his head that they'd be in Colombia, and that's where he's going to find his perfect relationship, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And Suzanne took him through some conversations like we're having with that is about truth and what does it really mean, and all of that sort of stuff. So it broadened his thinking a little bit and opened him up, and he became more open to finding the relationship without it having to fit into the box of this is going to be an exotic girl who lives down there, et cetera, et cetera. It didn't have to fit into the box. It was the outcome that we were looking for. The way that you got to the outcome didn't matter, right? So consequently, she took him through it and she worked with him for a while, and she got his mind. He wrote to us. He said, "You helped me become the man who my partner would like to be with,"
Wow.
right? You helped me become the man that my future partner would want to be with. And in so doing, you get rid of all the disbelief that there's no one out there for you and you've got to go all the way to Colombia to find a woman that, I mean, we only have 150 million in the United States alone. But anyway, uh, so so it changed the way he was thinking. And when you change the way you're thinking, then your vibratory energy is different. The way you approach life is different. Everything you do is different, right? And so, in very short order, he, a, a woman that he had met years before that was a girlfriend of his sister showed up somewhere in some social connection that he got, and it ended up they they got to know each other again, and in a moment, like I'm talking 3 months, they were engaged, then they were married, and then they
Wow.
had two little baby girls back to back, and 5 years later they have a beautiful family and they're married together, and he's got several businesses that he's developed since he was struggling when we first met him. I mean, it's just
Beautiful.
those kind of stories, payment, that's what lights you up, right? And you can
Absolutely.
hear it's the passion. Like, you can have passion about that sort of thing, and how do you affect those both parties? And then what did they create? The ripple effect. They have two beautiful baby girls, and they're having a beautiful life together, and it's affecting everyone in their circles. And imagine that ripple effect. How beautiful is that?
Yeah, and I can definitely sense the passion, excitement in you and the way you talk, because it's almost like two different people have been talking. The Shawn of the previous 40 minutes and now the Shawn of the past 5 minutes, just all of a sudden you came to life because you talk about something that you're passionate. Seriously, yeah, that's beautiful to watch. I love seeing that. Awesome. Now, let's start wrapping things up. And to finish, I'd like to ask you a series of rapid fire questions on advices. Ready?
Okay.
What's the best piece of advice you received so far in your life?
Best piece of advice I received so far in my life. Huh. Gosh. I don't know what I would say about that. I would say just to live with peace, right? To live with peace and accept people where they are.
Beautiful. Now, what has been so far the worst piece of advice that you received?
The worst piece of advice. You can't do that. That's not what everyone else is doing. That would be the worst piece of advice, unless you turn it around backwards and you say, yeah, okay, well, if no one else is doing it, I'm going to go do it anyway.
Let me show you. Yeah, exactly. Now, imagine that you were blessed with a time machine. You can go back in time and sit face to face with an 18-year-old Shawn. What's the number one piece of advice you would give to him, knowing all that you know now?
18-year-old Shawn. Huh. Huh. Well, I can't say live life full out because that's what we did. So I can't say that. What would I say to 18-year-old Shawn? I think, when I was younger, I used to grind on things a little bit too much. I was a bit of a fighter. And I think it would have been nice to get to a more, I don't want to say enlightened, because it's maybe not the greatest use of that word, but to get to a more peaceful place sooner and stop fighting, right? Stop being the fighter, because I was the fighter. And when you can get to a place of peace and you can accept yourself and everyone else where they are, and live, then your life can really start to live. You can really start to live it.
Absolutely. Do you have your own podcast?
Well, we've done a couple of podcasts. They're very rudimentary, I suppose you might say, but they're okay. They're on our site and they're good information. And I tell people sometimes when they that maybe our post on Facebook sucks or whatever else. It's like, if you want a really good social media person, if that's most important to you, you gotta go get a really good social media person. But if you want a really good person that knows about relationships and can take you where you want to go in there, then you decide if you want to stay or not, right? Because I'm not great at a lot of things, but I am great at a lot of other things. And social media might not be great, but great at a lot of other things.
Imagine that today you have a very successful and popular podcast, and today you're interviewing the most special person in the world, and that is yourself. So, what is the first question that you want to ask yourself? What's the first question that comes to your mind?
Well, based on this conversation, I'd say, how come it took you so long to get to the point where you really relaxed into your peaceful lifestyle?
And what would be your answer?
I didn't know enough to stop fighting soon enough.
What was holding
Right?
you back?
Sometimes you don't know.
Yeah,
Sometimes you don't have an example, right?
yeah. You
Sometimes
don't
you
know
don't.
what you don't know. Yeah, exactly.
And we talk about that with people in our program as well. If you don't have an example of a great relationship, or you don't have an example from your parents that was great, which over 50% of the people don't, because their marriages broke up, right? So if you don't have an example, well, I never had a great example either. I had to figure it out,
Absolutely.
right?
How are you getting your clients for your business currently?
Currently, just starting to do some advertising and stuff, because this is a whole new arm of what we do. It's not attached to any business stuff anymore. It's just the relationship stuff. So it's kind of a new, fresh start for us now, Payment.
Mhm. The last question I will ask you, and that's my favorite question to ask all of my guests, and that is, what is the smallest thing you've done? And by small, I don't mean something small. I mean the one thing that you've done that has had the greatest, deepest, most profound positive impact in both your life and business. For me, for example, has been starting my podcast. What about you, Shawn?
I would say it's the whole coaching field,
Mm,
learning to coach and helping people. I mean, I got people that we trained. I mean, I'm going into a big story, but we trained people in how to be great in real estate in foreign countries, and it changed their lives because they just had communication gaps. They didn't know how to communicate with the foreign clients that were coming in,
mhm.
and it changed their lives. They literally bought houses and paid for things and had nice cars, and it upgraded their life beautifully.
Beautiful. Love that. If someone wants to connect with you, Shawn, what's the best way to do so?
I would say just go to readyforarelationship.com and see our stuff there and reach out to us.
Beautiful. I'll put that in the show notes. Listen, Shawn, absolute pleasure, honor. It was a blast talking to you. Love your story, love your passion, love your drive. Keep shining your light. I salute you, a true leader with a heart. Keep shining your light. Keep blessing the world with your presence, your impact, with your everything you're doing. Stay safe, stay awesome. God bless you. We're definitely going to be talking soon again. Thank you very much, my friend. Take care.
Thanks, buddy. Bye for
Very
now.
welcome. Cheers. Bye.